Once upon a time, two boys grew up playing hockey in the village of Terrace, British Columbia. One of them went on to play in the National Hockey League. The other became a comedian. Now, one flies planes and coaches youth hockey. The other is still a comedian and owns newsstands. This is their podcast, Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian.
There's a recording in progress, and I'm involved. Like I got nailed by something right there. Hey, Jeff.
like someone did a 5-iron off your forehead.
My head's now a sand trap. Wake up, do the podcast, I say. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to Enjoying Orange Slices. It's a big week in the NHL. It's a big week in America. It's a big week in Canada. It's a big week in Vegas. And in California, I'm surprised we're still here. It was so windy and rainy. Forget about the drought. We're now in a flood.
Exactly. 3 weeks in a row, we've talked about wind and rain. And it's crazy. I was working on the weekend, just like Loverboy, working for the weekend, but I was actually working on it. Shout out to our boy Mike Reno, because we love Loverboy. We go way back. Anyways, and actually I ended up in San Francisco where I met him. So kind of crazy, but 4 feet of snow just outside LA, and they were getting snow in the foothills all around LA. Just nuts. And rain in Vegas.
It's not often you can look out the window and see snow on the mountains south of LA.
Yeah.
And that happens.
I don't know if you probably see it a couple times, maybe a year, but
I don't know if I've ever seen it. I was like very impressed. It reminded me of Terrace, all the snow down and people just grumpy driving, blah, 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 going to the ski mall. Were you supposed to land in San Francisco, or did you get blown off? Were you supposed to go to San Jose, but it blew you into San Francisco?
Yeah, we were a little off course because of the wind. No, we ended up in San Francisco, and actually most of that weather, we had to deal with it in LA, but by the time we got up there, San Francisco was beautiful. And then when we came into Vegas, we got rocked. So note to self, if you're out flying and there's any weather in the area, expect some turbulence, because that stuff was still over Vegas. It was pretty crazy to land in Vegas and see this low-lying cloud, kind of what you see on the coast. It's pretty cool. And then beautiful today, windy. And then we're ready for around 4, 5, or 6 on Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Hammered again with more rain and snow. And they're talking like feet of snow. It's really needed, though, so we can't complain.
It's going to be needed. It's needed.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Our guest today, Dave Barr, coach of the Vienna Capitals, but also an ex-teammate of yours, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. I'm just setting our timer up here today so we don't run over with Barzy.
Part 2.
Because we kind of lost track of time there for from about 45 to 75 shows. We all of a sudden we went or maybe it was a little bit more. All of a sudden we wanted to keep talking for 2 hours. Barzy.
We were the 20-minute show, and then we were the hour 60 show. Otherwise known as a 2-hour show.
2-hour. Barzy, good player, right winger, very cagey, had really good hands, underrated player, and he had really good touch. I'll think as we go through the show here.
You played with him in Detroit? Is that where you played with him?
In Detroit, we played together. So
and
we went to the. What's that?
He's built like more of today's hockey player. Little skinny, little tall, very tall. Not like a big buff guy, right?
No, he's 6'2". He was pretty tough kid.
Handsome.
Too. Kid back then, he was older than I am. But Barzy, he was 6'2". He's kind of rangy. I'll think of somebody to compare him to in today's game, but it's a really smart player. And he used to have, we call it the stop and shop, right? When the guy stops and the guy goes shopping as he tries to defend him by him. But Barzy had really good misdirection. I hated going against him in practice because he was quite skilled at misdirection. And he was with us when we went to the conference finals twice, and we played the Oilers during their run twice when Gretz was there and Mess and all those guys. But Barzy had a good career. And then, another guy that went from playing now he's coaching, and he's coached in the show, had a really good career doing that. And now he's over in Europe, which is really interesting because, and I'm interested to ask him some questions about what the European teams look like this year, because the KHL, with everything going on over there in Russia, a lot of the imports that would be him playing in the KHL are trying to get jobs in Europe now, right? Because Russia's not really a place that I think a lot of guys feel comfortable going and trying to play right now until
they don't feel like being hostage.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah. So we'll ask him about that today for sure.
Also, something else we need to talk about. 2 years ago, he coached the under-18 Canadian under-18 team. So some of those players should be going to the draft now, or would have gone in the draft last year. So they should have a good eye on what's going on right there. So I look forward to talking to him about that.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a guy, he played a long time, and then he's been with the young kids, he's been with the pros, and now he's in Europe, kind of a triple threat. I mean, a guy that I'm sure some organizations are tapping into, and probably would do well. Maybe we'll see how he's doing. I mean, it's not like he's struggling over there in Vienna, right?
Yeah, so, probably crying.
But I think some of the North American clubs will definitely be reaching out to him on players he sees over there and what's going on.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some trades. Let's talk about Patrick Marleau having the retirement party. And did they raise his number or retirement party? I can't remember. I think they raised his number. They had a big weekend for him in San Jose.
Yeah, Jumbo was back, right? So
Nolan was back.
I'm surprised they didn't get Flats back. Maybe Flats couldn't make it because
maybe
Flats was part of that whole program.
Yeah.
But Patty Marleau played how long? 18 years old. He came into the league, 20 plus years.
20-something years.
All-time games record. Just a classy guy from small town Saskatchewan. Hello.
Why don't we talk about, we'll talk about that after we bring in our guest right here, brought to you by Superdeker, superdeker.com. Go there, learn how to stick handle, use the code SLICES, get yourself a little bit of a discount, and enjoy yourself. Go from Jeff Sharples to Dave Barr with your stick handling. Boom, boom. Can we bring him in? Welcome, Dave Barr. You're coaching in Vienna. You're the head coach of the Vienna Capitals. But let's be honest, you were a teammate of Jeff Sharples in Detroit, Michigan. How was that?
It was awesome. Sharps was a good offensive defenseman. I don't know what he said about himself. Like I was really good. He had a big shot. He was a power play type defenseman in the NHL level. He was a terrific guy, as all Canadians are. So I really enjoyed it. We had 2-3 years together, I think, Sharps, and we had some success too. We went to the conference finals twice. So we did have some success. It wasn't that we just had some fun together. Ultimately, you're trying to win games, and we did do that.
Oh, that's awesome. I think we should probably stop right there. Thanks for coming on, Dave.
Exactly. That's very complimentary, Barzy. What Ian and I were talking about it before we came on, and just kind of going back over the past. But when we played together, Detroit was on the rise. We got to the conference finals twice, but we ended up playing the Oilers, who had a guy named Gretzky and Messier. But we had some really, really good players and some real complementary pieces. But a guy like yourself, and I was telling, Beggsy was talking about it earlier, but how you were kind of built like today's player. You were like, you're 6'2", you're a pretty tall guy, pretty lanky. You had good hands. I always said you had great misdirection. I told Beggsy I hated going against you in practice because you could give the shimmy and the shake. How like when you look back at that, you came in with who? St. Louis, was it, or who'd you come in with?
Yeah, I started with Boston, signed as a free agent with Boston, and then played there not a lot with Boston my first 2 years. And then eventually went to St. Louis, kind of got going in St. Louis. I had 2 pretty good years there in St. Louis, and then eventually went to Detroit. Jacques Demers went from St. Louis to Detroit. I think he appreciated maybe I might have been a little undervalued, and they traded for me. So went to Detroit from there, and then like when people ask me like, hey Dave, where's the team that you kind of identify with, and it was for sure Detroit, because I had some personal success, but more importantly is if you're not having success as a team, then it's not a lot of fun, and we had pretty good teams there. We had competitive teams. We were physical teams. We had some toughness. So it was a wonderful time, especially for working with the Ilitch family, who just treated us so well.
They sure did. And I mean, the Ilitches are just the greatest. And what a city. And the Red Wings fans still travel so well today. But when you bring back, like, you had some really good years in Detroit. But was it? I thought it was you and I were talking the one time that. You look at the money that these guys make nowadays, and I remember I've said it before, where I think it was you and I were talking, you were trying to get a raise like from 115 grand to 135 one year or something. And it was like, trying to pull Jimmy Devil out, Jimmy D's teeth out. But just think about the difference in the money, and maybe talk about, like, after you'd had some good years, you were playing with Oates and Adam Oates, and you guys had great synergy. Really solid top six. Definitely a great second line with Stevie Y leading the way as a top centerman. But talk about just real quick about trying to negotiate back then. And we were looking for 10 or 15 grand more a year, right?
Oh, I actually have a really good story. I think I can share it. So I was in with I didn't use an agent one year, and so I go in with Jimmy Devellano. So we're negotiating mano a mano, and I'm talking. I think I was asking for 275 or something like that, which was it wasn't out of my realm, but it might have been a little heavy. And so, anyways, we worked in bonuses. So Jimmy said, "Hey, I'll give you some bonuses. You have a good year, you'll get rewarded by the bonuses." So I had a good year. I had 27 goals that next year. So I got some bonuses, and so I go back in again. At that time, it was always a 1-and-1 for us average guys. 1 year contract plus an option. So I had to go back in the next year. So I walk into the office with Jimmy, and I got I'm organized and coming off a 27 goal year. And Jimmy says to me, he goes, "Dave," he goes, "we like the old Dave Barr a little bit more than we like the new Dave Barr." So I think they I think their view was the Dave Barr, who was kind of a reliable two-way guy, had changed into a more of an offensive thinking guy. They liked the idea of the two-way Dave Barr a little bit more. So money changed a lot. And right around 90, I think it was 92, somewhere in there, 91, 92, when that's when things really started going and guys started getting really paid. And so I kind of missed out on a little bit of that, but it was still just a wonderful career.
I love it. How did you get into coaching? Was it something you always thought of doing, or was somebody said, "Hey, you should try this"?
I think I was one of those guys that was always thinking about, why did the coach put that line out? Why did they do this? And I had Jacques Demers say to me late in my career in Detroit, he said, "You're going to be a coach one day, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I am." And yeah, and it's just because I thought about whatever happened. I just didn't not think and just take care of what Dave Barr. I mean, that's the good and the bad of me, I guess. At some point, is I wanted to know why that happened and why we reacted like this, and so I knew right near the end of my career that I wanted to get into coaching and try to influence what happens in the game.
Have you had any Dave Barrs on your team where you're like, "Oh, that guy's going to be a coach"?
Oh yeah. Those are the guys you have the most trouble with, unfortunately.
That's called karma.
there's a lot of guys. For the most part, like coaching in Vienna right now, I have James Shepard, who's an NHL player, and he wants to get into coaching. And what's interesting is, I talk to him and I rely on him. He's a 34 or 35-year-old player for us in Vienna here, and he's an elite player at our level in his own way. He's not super fast, but he's just a very smart hockey player. And so I've talked to him about getting into coaching, and he wants to. And I asked him why, and he said because I really think I can help players go through different things. Like, everybody goes through something. Fourth line guys who think they should be first line guys. First line guys who played college or junior hockey and they're in the NHL or close to the NHL, and they think they should be playing higher. They don't understand the role they're in. And so it's situations like that. I think the reason why I hope I'm a good coach is because I played on the first line a little bit, not a lot. First, second, third, fourth line. I experienced everything, experienced sitting out, experienced being on the ice a lot. So I think I can kind of hopefully help players with that. And I think that's, in this case here, I was talking about James Shepard. I think that's what he kind of is saying as well.
Nice.
Hey, Barzy, so because you're a deep thinker, you played with Oates. Guys used to give me hell all the time. I remember that, buggers. But I remember that you would break stuff down, and you were always thinking about the game. And now it's obviously served you really well, because now you're going to coach for longer than you played. So you came out. What were the steps you did? Or I'd say, I know it's kind of changed now, but as a prospective coach, someone's listening. As you came out of a player, what did you do to kind of get yourself ready, and where did you go after playing you finished your career? How did you kind of get the coaching steps going?
My last 2 years, I played in the International Hockey League for the Orlando Solar Bears. I had a couple serious injuries near the end of my career in the NHL, and kind of booted me out of the league. So I went to Orlando. I asked Kurt Fraser, the head coach there, I said, would you mind if I got involved a little bit on the coaching side, because I want to get into it? And he did. He involved me. I was a player 95%, and he would call me in periodically, almost like an older player, which I was, and say, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So I didn't really get into coaching much in that vein. When I retired and I knew I was done, 36 years old, I was like, I can't play anymore. My elbows, my knees, everything is just a little too sore. I can't be an effective player anymore. I knew I was going to retire. Applied for a job. I phoned Ken Hitchcock up and I said, Ken, I want to get into coaching. Do you have anything for me? He goes, there's a job available in Kamloops right now. I'll get you an interview there. So I get an interview with Kamloops, didn't get the job. I am so glad I didn't get that job, because you just don't know how much there is involved in being a coach. When you're a player, you're just like doing your thing. You listen to coaches, you move on. But anyways, I contacted an old friend of mine, or old teammate of mine, Dave Tippett, who's the head coach in Houston Aeros. I phoned him up and said, Dave, you need an assistant? He flew me in. And I remember the first game. I remember this so well. I'm on the bench running the defenseman, and I don't remember 10% of what the hell happened on the ice, because you're just the game's over, and I'm like, holy cow! As a player, and you'll remember this, Sharps. As a player, you kind of remember 99% of everything that happened to you for sure. And then almost everything else, every other player in your team, who's played well, who hasn't. And that first game or two is like, holy smokes, there's a lot more to coaching than I thought.
That's great. That's a great story. Nobody ever talks about jumping in and how your mind takes it at the beginning. You're just trying to, yeah. Do you remember? Do you remember thinking, I got to get out of this game? I got to learn how to fly.
Yes, I did remember that. I was one of the first times I presented. So presenting, right? I'm a fairly outgoing guy, but we all have or moment. So I'm presenting some sort of an element to the players. And so I'm ready for it. I'm organized. I'm at the board, and I turn around, and I look back, and I got like half the team at least looking at their skates, taping their stick, and that threw me for a loop. And I'm like, holy cripes, nobody's listening to anything I'm saying here. What the hell's going on? But these are the things that you learn as you obviously as you move along as a coach.
Right. Dave Barr, the first coach to be on the IR. Fakes an injury. Oh,
it's kind of interesting that you say that, Barzy, because the game when you're on the ice sometimes gets a little fast, but you're out there, you're in the moment, right? And so usually you're able to adapt. You know who you're out there against. When you're on the bench, it slows down as a player because you can sit there and pick apart little things. But when you're sitting behind the players and you're trying to get your matchup, or you're trying to figure out who's next, or who's going out in the power play or whatever, it brings a whole different element. And I know, you know the game really well. Obviously, you're coaching now. Most guys that leave the game know it really well, but that doesn't necessarily translate to being able to help, once you get behind the bench, right? So that's awesome. So how long were you in Houston for with Tip? Were you there a while, or?
Tip and I were there for, I was there for 2 years. Second year we won the championship, which was the Turner Cup in the IHL. And then the next year, Ron Lowe came in for 1 year. I was his assistant, and he went to the New York Rangers, got a head job with the New York Rangers after that year. Then I was head coach GM for 2 years, for 1 year. And then we became affiliated with Minnesota Wild. They became our farm team. So the owner, Chuck Watson, wonderful man, said to me, Dave, would you like to be the GM president? And I said, I talked to my wife, and I said, hey, we can stay here in Houston. I said, and so we eventually said yes to that. So I'm going into business meetings knowing absolutely nothing. Marketing, I had Sharps. Try to picture this. You're going into a business meeting going, public relations, marketing, all the stuff that you have to know about, ticket sales, group sales, all this stuff. I knew nothing. But after about 2 months of being totally stressed out, I really enjoyed it. So I was the GM. I worked with Minnesota Wild, assistant GM, to kind of put together a lineup for our team. They were going to provide, I think it was 14 players at the time, maybe 5 defensemen, 10 forwards, and then I would kind of plug in with what we might need otherwise. I got some stories here. So I'm president GM, and we're trying to sell tickets, right? So we're trying to, get some people involved in coming to the game. So it was the strike year. There was I think there was a strike going on. It was this would have been right around 2000. Anyways, so I say, they throw at me, no fight. You get a refund on your ticket. You get a refund. So guaranteed fight night. So I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm an old school guy.
You're like,
so they're saying, why don't we do a guaranteed fight night? And I'm going like, what do you mean? There's no way we can do a guaranteed fight night. No, let's try a guaranteed fight night. So I started thinking about it. And it's not like we're guaranteeing a fight is going to happen and somebody has to fight. We're guaranteeing them that if there is no fight, just by chance, they can get tickets to the next home game. So I kind of thumbs up it. Big mistake. I got called by 10 radio stations in Canada going, I can't believe you're doing this. This is a travesty. Hockey is a great game. And I'm like, I know it is. I agree with it is. Anyways, we never were allowed to do it because at the time we switched into we were in the AHL at the time. And they said, no way you can do that. No way you can do that. So it was one of those things. But I was in Houston for 2 years as 3 years as assistant, 1 year as head coach GM, and then 2 years as president GM.
I love it. I love that you panicked at the beginning. Once again, first president ever to be on IR.
Oh, I had some headaches. I had some headaches going into the office every day. Oh my God.
Hey, Barzy, I want to ask you about that president and GM. And that's, you're at the minor league level. You got a lot of stuff going on. You do see the odd president and GM still, but now they're starting to separate that job out. What, like, could you, if you went back into it now, like, is there just too much going on to have the GM be the president of the hockey club as well? Like, is that kind of thinking past, or is it doable?
I think it depends where it is. In the NHL, I think there's no way. I'm not even sure if there's anybody in that position in the NHL. A true GM. There's enough going on as a GM in the NHL with all the stuff they have to deal with. I think in the minor leagues, I think it can be done. I had a great, I don't want to call him an assistant because he was essentially my boss, helping me out with it. Dave Feldman helped me out with learning the business side. And I really, truly got to the point where I loved trying to figure out a way for us to sell tickets and get more people coming to the games. But I think there can be, and it's just a matter of it's more the GM. Is that person capable of being a GM more than the business side? I mean, the business side, obviously it might hurt the team's finances a bit if you're not great with it, but it's the GM part that's really imperative of bringing players in, and giving yourself a chance to have a good team. The better team you have, the more people that want to come to your games. So it's a little bit, that's probably the most important part. And so if you have some presidential qualities, then I think you have a chance. But I think it's not doable. I don't think it's done anywhere in the NHL. But in the minor leagues, I think it is doable.
Interesting. You still think it's doable in the minor leagues. We want to talk to you about you were in the NHL coaching for a while, and then you took a job with the under-18 team a couple years ago during COVID, actually, in the thick of COVID. You were in, I think it was back in Texas. Guys were in that tournament, and you won that tournament, right? The under-18 team?
Yes. I was, we had the big firing. Pete DeBoer got fired. I got fired. Four people got fired from San Jose. And then,
it's going great there.
Pardon me?
It's going great there. They seem to be doing just nothing but.
We got fired there, and so I was not doing much of anything, and I was actually doing carpentry work. I had our San Jose's trainer was redoing his house, so I went by his house just to look at it, and I was doing nothing at home. My wife wanted to kill me, so I wasn't doing much of anything. And so I said, "Do you mind if I start helping out here?" I didn't want to get paid or anything, but I ended up doing it for a year and a half. Huh. And so just working on redoing houses. And then I got a phone call from a friend at Hockey Canada, and he said, "Dave, you want to be involved in coaching the U18 team this year?" And I said, "I'm like, I can't believe he asked me." What the reason I say that is because I was like, there's no way I would not say yes to it. It was a fantastic opportunity. So he asked me, and he never told me what position, assistant coach or head coach. And then he phoned me back 2-3 hours later, and he goes, "I'd like you to be a head coach. You want to do it?" And I said, "For sure." So I realized right away that we had, and I didn't know really anything about the players there, but I looked them up real quick, and I thought to myself, we have lots of firepower, lots of guys who can score goals. So, as soon as I said yes to the job, I started thinking to myself right away. I said, okay, so how am I going to sell these guys on defending? And so I think we did a great job. The coaching staff did a very good job in regards to getting these guys to think about defending, because we could score. we could score. And we won the gold medal. It was an absolute joy. The players bought in, everybody dug in and did what we needed to do. I think we outshot or outscored our teams 55-12. And I got a real good story for you. We played Sweden, I think, second game, and they were, they were going to be top 14 for sure. And we beat them, I think, 12-1 in the first game, and then we played them in the semifinals, and we beat them 10-1, I think.
Oh, they got better.
And so we're going into the gold medal game, and we're kind of celebrating that. And hopefully, you guys know who's the first round pick. Detroit's first round pick, big defenseman.
Cider?
No, he's a 20-year-old this year, 19-year-old. Anyways, Edmondson comes to our bench and says, coaches are just stepping onto the ice. Edmondson comes to our bench and said, Coach, he goes, you're the best team I have ever played against. And he skated away. And we knew he was going to be a top 10 guy. And it was like, I turned to my assistants and I said, wow, that's a real nice compliment right there. So it was a fantastic journey. It was, through COVID.
Was he trying to get traded?
Pardon me?
Was he trying to get traded? What was he doing?
It was done through COVID. So we got to Dallas and we went 5 days without seeing the players. So players had to do workouts in their room, not allowed to leave the room. I wasn't allowed to leave the room. None of the coaches were allowed to leave the room. It was absolutely crazy. So we had to do all our video sessions, from my room to all their rooms. It was absolutely, one of those COVID moments. So, but it was just absolutely wonderful experience.
Who is some of the players? Yeah, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
I want to ask you about this because we had Tim Hunter on, and he had coached the World Junior Canadians. How much pressure is it coaching a Canadian? Like, I think the World Juniors have the most pressure out of anything I've ever seen. It's almost criminal. The Canadians have won the last 2 years, but just the whole setup in Canada is win or you're no good. And so talk about the pressure and how did you handle that? Or did it affect you? Like, is it always there coaching a Canadian national team?
The pressure is there for sure. I think one thing that made it easier on us, if it was in Halifax, like where the World Juniors was just taking place, you got Canadian press and you got Canadian people all around you. You got that's the big one there. But we were in Dallas during COVID. We had no crowds at all for till the last game, till the gold medal game. I think that was the first time we had anybody in the stands. So you can imagine kind of going through a big game and there's nobody watching the game other than there's about 20, 30 scouts in the stands type thing. So, but there was enough pressure. I had coached the U18 team about 12 years prior, and we had not won. And they won 5 times in a row after I coached that team. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to win. And we had an incredible lineup. We had a great Alan Miller did a great job putting players together, and he had a few dark horses in our lineup that turned out to be just wonderful players for us. So that Canadian thing is very much evident. And everybody, the thing that we played Latvia, we beat them, I think 5-2, something like that. So I saw the Latvian coach after the game. I went for a press meeting. He came for his press meeting, and I was walking on mine, and he was almost in tears. And I shook his hand. I said, and they worked their tail off. They were very, very competitive to us. And I said, Coach, that was great. Your team should be very proud. And he was almost in tears. And he said, I can't tell you how proud I am. So when teams play Team Canada, they know that they have to be on top of their game. So Team
That's a
Canada
great
gets
story.
the best game all the time.
That's amazing.
And
So that's a
how about-
great story.
How about some of the players you had, Barzy? That I mean, that was a few years ago now. So talk about some of these players you have and where they are, and just kind of give the people, so from playing for Team Canada in the U18, how have these guys progressed? A bunch of them.
Mason McTavish was kind of my second line centerman. He's playing for Anaheim right now, doing quite well. Shane Wright was fourth overall. Could have easily been first. He's going to be a star in the NHL. He's got drafted to Seattle. I think he's playing for Windsor right now, but he'll be a player that's going to be a difference maker. Dylan Gunther. I'll give you a couple of my guys that are a little bit under the radar a little bit. I think Dylan Gunther is going to be a star player in the NHL's right shot. He's a little light, but he's not. He's strong in his skates. He's got a great shot. He knows how to play the game. I think he's going to be one of those guys that just helps you win games. Steve Larmer-ish is how he is. He is a smart hockey player who can play the game. Wyatt Johnson's playing for Dallas as an underage 19-year-old player. He came on as a fourth line centerman for me. I knew nothing about any of these players. So the first time I saw him skate, or saw a little bit of video on him, but first time I saw him skate and then play, you kind of get ideas on that. Wyatt Johnson, I think, is going to be a great player. He's doing quite well for Dallas right now. I've got to remember all the guys that we had here. Oh my gosh, I know I'm gonna kill myself a little bit later, but we had Stan Coben, one of my favorite players, came to play, a little bit undersized, playing for Kamloops right now. I think they have the Mem Cup in Kamloops this year. He is a guy that knows how to score, wants to score, will do anything it takes. Kind of a Pat Verbeek type player. Maybe not with the edge of Pat Verbeek, that real edginess, but he's got that type of game to him. He like Pat was a good goal scorer, plus he was a pain in the ass to play against. Well, Stan Coben is going to be one of those guys who's going to be a pain in the ass just because he wants to help his team win, and he can shoot. He knows how to shoot the puck in the net. So we had a lot of really good players. Offman, who's a Ranger draft pick, I think he's going to have a long career. We had a wonderful team, and we really covered all the bases. Alan Miller did a great job with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, would all those kids be drafted by now?
Every single player on the team got drafted, other than Milich, who was the goalie for Canada this year at the World Juniors. I believe Milich was the goalie. But I think we had every single player who played on the team got drafted in the NHL. A big reason is because the scouts were able to see these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like there weren't a lot of games being played this year. The OHL had minimal games. The WHL had minimal games. So these NHL scouts got to see all these guys play in meaningful games at a high level. And so I think that's one reason, but obviously the guys get drafted. There's a reason why they got drafted.
They're obviously, it's impressive that they were all able to get seen there and actually get that attention. But they probably would have got drafted anyways, because that team was a juggernaut. I don't know. Plus,
extremely well coached as well.
The coach was. I heard the coach was hurt after the second game.
Injured reserve.
Barzy, I wanted to ask you about. So after the U18, this Wyatt Johnson's really perked my interest this year because we had Pete on the show a while ago, and he talked about him in Spotter, and he's playing with Jamie Benn, and I forget who they got. I think Ben's been playing in the middle with them, but what is about, like, for a 19-year-old to come in the league, and I know some of these players come in, they're just special. What kind of a player like a Wyatt Johnson, who's on a first place hockey team as a 19-year-old playing in their top 6, top 3 on that team. What is that? What when you see this kid for the first time, then you get to coach him for the amount of time he did. What is special? What kind of is his secret sauce that makes him be able to play in the NHL at this age?
Sharps. I think it's hockey smarts. It really comes down to being hockey smart. Everybody's got, in general, you were an average skater. Were you? You're an average skater, Sharps?
Yeah, I would say average. Yeah.
Okay, so we all
That's a
have our
compliment.
we all have our strengths and weaknesses, skill wise. It doesn't change a ton. Like if you got decent hands, they might get to above a little bit level above that. 5 years into your NHL career, your pro career. But hockey smarts don't change a lot. I watched Wyatt Johnson and Alan Miller, who's Hockey Canada's GM for that team. He told me about all the guys, and I watched Wyatt Johnson and watching him play. I got him on my fourth line. I'm going, he's better than a fourth line guy. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to defend. He knows how to create offense. And I think that's the biggest thing is hockey smarts. Skating is kind of easy to see. Shooting, is kind of, he's got a good shot. He can make a pass. But, there's lots of guys who have a great shot, but they never get it off because they don't know where to go. So it doesn't matter. I remember watching a few guys when I was coaching junior going, oh, my God, this guy's got an NHL shot. But he never could get it off because he didn't know how to get open. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And with Wyatt Johnson specifically is you could see his hockey smarts. He understands the game. He understands if the puck's going there, it's probably going to go there next. So I'll go here. You hear about Gretzky knowing where to go, and that's why he was such a great player. But it's with the players that I had. Dylan Gunther is a great example. I think, as I said earlier, he's going to be a star in the NHL just because he's smart and he's got good skills. And he's strong in the skates. He's got a lot of great attributes. And Wyatt Johnson's that guy. He's that guy. He got 115 points, I think, as an 18-year-old in the OHL, something like that. I think he led the league. And that's from a guy who was thought to be kind of a two-way centerman. But he's got hockey smarts, and I think that's the most important part about hockey is if you've got hockey smarts, you got a chance to play.
Nice. How did you get the job in? We'll move on from that. We could talk about that. We could be here for part 4 of that team. To be honest with you, we could be here for many, many episodes talking about that team, and it's impressive. And maybe we'll try to grab you next time the World Juniors happen, and just to go over kind of stuff like that, because you do have an outlook that we don't have on those teams. I'd love to get your thoughts on that if you have time, because we know you're in Vienna now. And you're probably just, getting off a chocolate high after having a big bar. How did you end up in Vienna, and how awesome is it?
I ended up. I was looking for NHL jobs for a couple of years. Came real close with 3 or 4 where I thought it'd be a good fit. I have my resume is penalty kill and power play, and special teams. Being a special teams coach is a big part of being an NHL coach. Mm-hmm. So I think I have a decent power play PK resume. That doesn't work. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I wanted to coach. I turned down a couple jobs that weren't quite what I wanted. Wanted to coach. I hadn't been a head coach for a while. And so I had the opportunity. Dave Cameron took the head job in Ottawa for the Ottawa 67s junior team, mm-hmm. as well as he was going to be the World Junior coach that year. This was a COVID year kind of, so a little bit different. So he left Vienna, and this was mid-July, and somebody called me right away and said, hey, Dave Cameron's leaving Vienna. Do you want an opportunity? So I said, yeah. So I contacted the GM. They flew me right out there. They said yes right away. So I flew right back and then turned around and flew right back again. So it came around real quickly. Absolutely. Have you ever been to Vienna? You guys ever been to Vienna?
I've not.
No. No.
It's definitely worth seeing for sure. It's probably a good 3 or 4 day trip. It's a wonderful city. The transportation here is public transportation is fantastic. I live about let's see, Sharps. You a good golfer, Sharps? You're a pretty good golfer, aren't you?
Oh, I'm all right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm no Joey, but I'm okay.
Okay, so it would be I'm about a 4 iron. Your 4 iron might be a 5 wood for me to the rink.
Nice.
It's not very far. It's about a 3 minute walk, and absolutely love it here. I have a car available for me, but usually just take the subway when I want to do stuff in Vienna. It's just a terrific city, great city. We have about half. It's about half imports, half Austrian players. The Austrian players are. I can't even tell you how hard they work and how committed they are to their job. And then the imports, you try to. We have James Shepard this year as one of our better imports. Max Zimmers from Minnesota. Kind of mostly North American players, kind of half American, half Canadian players on the team. We have a competitive team. We think we have an opportunity to win. But I absolutely love it. The coaching here. I remember when I went from the AHL to the OHL, and I thought, okay, I'll be smarter than all these guys here. You recognize real quick, hey, these guys are good. They're here for a reason, and it's the same thing here. There's some real good coaches here that are very organized, and Kevin Constantine's coaching a team in the league here. A coach for Salzburg is taking the head job in San Diego, Anaheim's farm team. He's a really good coach. So it's a great challenge. I love it. I love going to the rink every day.
What are the crowds like? Are they one of those crowds that sings and chants and
Yep. Soccer. It's soccer. It's
awesome.
it's just like soccer. We have. I got a good story. Okay, I got a good story to deal with that. So at one end of the arena, we have it's a bit of an open. It's not open, but it's all roofed in. But we have two glass. One end's glass, the other end's glass. So one of the ends that's glass is where all our fanatics go. Our fanatical fans go. The guys who are they're all in. So they're there banging drums. They got signs going on. There's chanting all night long. It's incredible. So we lost a couple very winnable games. So the fans were ticked at us, and maybe ticked at me. I'm sure they were ticked at me. But so the GM tells me, he goes, "Hey, they're not going to make any noise." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, they're boycotting. This is the way of them telling you that they're not happy." So we're not playing a high level team this night, and so they're not saying a word, and it's like normally they're going nuts. They got flares going. It's exciting. So they do nothing, and not only are they not making any noise, but the other team, who's not very good, scores a goal. So I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing going on down there. There's no noise. The other team just scores a goal. And so eventually we kind of got there. We scored a goal. They kind of cheered on our first goal, and then we made it 2, 3, 4, 5. So it became okay. So they started cheering again. But they are fanatics. We get about it's still a little bit COVID, because I'm told they would get 5 a game for sure, 5,000 a game for sure, and so I think we're averaging around 44 this year. But it's so lively. VIP is huge here. They love the VIP. We want to be treated special. So VIP means you would pay 6 times more for your ticket than a normal person would, but you got free drinks, free food all night long. So you just have a little band in your wrist. It's really kind of neat. So you can just on a game by game basis go, I'm going to go VIP tonight, and you pay X amount for your VIP ticket. You and your girlfriend or wife or buddy, and you go drink as much as you want. Come out, eat. Come out, watch a game, go eat more. It's really a really big deal here, but it's a great environment.
I'd love to go to a bunch of games over there, just tour around and just like that, and just see all those games and see the difference in the game and the fans and all that. Just is it it's the European rink too, right? It's bigger rink, Olympic rink.
Yeah, all our rinks are Olympic size. The hockey is North American.
Hmm.
It's there's not a ton of fighting, but there's a lot of hitting. You know, you got a chance to nail a guy, he's getting hit. So it's edgier than I thought it would be. I wasn't sure what to expect. It's a little bit like hockey is in North American right now. You got a chance to nail a guy, you're freaking hitting him. So and then there's there's some fighting. So it's that part of it's very much what I kind of know about hockey.
Hey, Barzy, I wanted to ask you about this. With everything that's gone on in Russia, and you're not going to get the same amount of players, or I would assume jobs are a little tougher to come by in Europe because the KHL, you're not going to have all your imports go over there. Have you noticed a difference in being able to recruit and or in the league in general with some players that might not normally be in the league or are there now?
Yeah, for sure, and a great point because a lot of players have KHL pays a fair amount, so you can go there and play and make pretty good coin. But I think a lot of players have said, not for me, not the right time for me to go there, and so it's become it's a tough marketplace right now for sure. So it's different. I've been only here 2 years, so I can't really compare it to 5 years ago. But from what I've been told, it's a different marketplace because of what's going on over here.
Hey, last question I have for you, Barzy. You talked about it earlier. I just wanted to come back and touch on it because it could apply to anybody outside of hockey. So you had where you were out for a year and a half. All you'd known is hockey, right? That's all you did. And then basically it was a reset, but it seems like this reset for you has been a springboard. Did it give you time to kind of, I don't know, collect your thoughts, talk about that? Because I think being out of the game, I know you talk to your friends in the game all the time. I keep in touch with guys like Hoods, Ryan McGill, these guys that are still in. And one of the things that you always hear from guys that are Dean Chanel's in Toronto, they talk about if you don't have a job, you need to get a job right away. Well, you kind of have proven that by, taking a year and a half off, your path might be a little different, but you're back in the game, loving it. Talk about that a little bit and how that kind of sets you up for where you are now.
Well, I think it is interesting because there's a lot of hockey coaches when I was in the NHL kind of coaching, and a guy that you coached against, 3 years later, going, what happened to Pete Smith? And it's like he's gone, and that very easily could be Dave Barr or whomever. You just kind of go, you get fired from San Jose and you never hook up again, and you're out, you're gone. So I think getting the job with Team Canada just kind of put me in a little bit in the spotlight again.
Mm-hmm.
And we won the gold. And typically Canada doesn't do great in that tournament because they don't have all the players that other teams have. Like the U.S. team, U.S. Under 18, they have every single player that they want. Mm-hmm. Where Canada, although we didn't get any players from Quebec, but Canada typically, any OHL, WHL, Q teams that are in the playoffs, they're not able to send players to this tournament. So Canada typically doesn't do great at this tournament. So it helped a ton that that we won gold and that I was coaching the team, and it's just an easier sell for me to get back into junior hockey, or that I'm able to work with younger players, because I'm getting older now. And are you able to work with a 21-year-old player? Are you able to work with a 17-year-old player? And so hopefully that was proven a bit that I can work with whomever. And, so I get the opportunity in Vienna. And so it's been good. But once you get on the outside, haven't worked for a while. It's tough to get back in. You kind of thought to be, it's just time's come for him to be out of it. So thank goodness I was able to get back in and am still coaching.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think both of those points. I think the way it was done though was you still had your fingers in the pie. Like you weren't like just I'm out like nobody. I'm not talking to anybody for the next year and a half. You're still talking to people, but you did your own thing to reset your mind.
For sure. I rely on so much as connections. So if I was to ever get a head job, who am I hiring as my assistants? Typically, you're going to hire guys that right? That can do a job for you. And so Pete DeBoer was just absolutely fantastic for me. Helping me wherever he could help me, and that means a lot. Like if Dave Barr's interviewing with St. Louis or whomever I'm interviewing with, and Pete says, gives a call to the head coach and says, "Hey, Dave's great, this and whatever he says to him." It makes a huge difference. Having references like a guy like Pete. And he went way out of his way to help me, and I really appreciate that. He wrote me a reference letter that I'm looking at going, I don't know if I would have wrote that about me. It was like, I don't think I'm that good, really. So, it's one of those things that you're like, whoa, Pete, you're being Pete's such a good man. But he was so helpful for me for 2 or 3 years trying to help me get a job back in the NHL.
Love it. I love it. I love what you're up to. I love what you're doing. I love what you've done. I appreciate you saying yes and coming on and talking to us. We really do appreciate that. And thanks for letting us know that Jeff was an average skater.
Average skater, but real good shot and a very good passer.
Oh. Hey, I'll never forget. I got a quick story because you two were thick as Steve, you and Oates. So I fire one at Oates one day, right? Because I always think about you guys going through the middle, and I'm like, I don't want to get their head ripped off. And he looks back at me, and he lifts his stick up, and basically, he just looks at me in that stare he's got, and goes, "Sharps, I would have had it if it hadn't broke my stick."
I'll tell you what, is there anybody like Adam Oates? Have you kept in touch with him at all?
I see him from time to time when he's through town. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. I saw him when the Blues were here a couple of years ago. I see Oates from time to time. He hasn't changed a bit. This makes me laugh every time I see him. But yeah, that was his carve of me. Sharps would have had that one, but you would have broke my stick.
He said to me one time, do you remember how I tape my stick? I don't remember. You're like 3 strands, this wide, right? I don't know why. That was in junior. In junior hockey, I was playing for Lethbridge, and we had 3 veteran defensemen get injured. So the coach says to me, he goes, "You want to play defense?" I go, "Oh, sure, okay, I'll play defense." So he put me on left defense. So as a joke, Bobby Orr style tape job, I did a little 2-strapper on near the heel of my stick, and I stuck with it. So anyways, I changed my tape job, and Oates says to me, he goes, "No, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just, I haven't scored for a few games here. I'm just going to change my tape job." He goes, No. He goes, "I won't know that it's your stick or if it's somebody else's stick. I need just the 2 or 3 strands of tape on it." I go, okay. So this is why he's in the Hall of Fame. Sharps, you're not in the Hall of Fame, are you?
Well, maybe the Terrace Hall of Fame.
You and I are both on it. That's why he's in it and we're not.
I should be. You know what's funny? He used to come down, talk about Oates. He would be talking about him all day. He'd look right at me in the practice. Like he'd be looking, coming down. This is how good this guy could pass. He'd look and you'd shut down that pass and somehow he'd squeak it through you. And so when Barzy says, "Hey, Oates, give it to him about his tape job," that's how good he was, because there'd be a mosh pit in front of the net. But if he could see where you were going, and he could lead you. I don't know if I ever played with a guy that passed the puck better than Adam Oates did. Just incredible. And just the character too, right? I'm never afraid to chirp you.
I love him. He's a unique thinker, and he's a great man, real good man.
Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah, and a hell of a. I mean, he just kept going and going and going, and I think I don't know of a guy that I can remember. Gretz was obviously upper echelon, probably Mario too, but Oates's got to be top 5, top 10 ever passers in
Oh,
the league.
I think he's fifth, sixth, seventh in assists in the NHL. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I scored 27 one year. That's the only reason.
Then they asked you to go back the other way.
Yeah.
Jimmy D, I could just see him explaining that to you too. We like the old Dave Barr a little better than the new. I could just see Jimmy, but yeah. Well, thanks, Barzy. Really appreciate you having on, taking the time out of your day for us.
My pleasure. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you, bud. It was brought to you by Heady Gear. Heady Gear. You go to headygear.com, get yourself a backpack. Put your favorite hockey players on there. Put your favorite teams on there. Put whatever you want to put on there. We still do not have a code. Etikin's still fighting us on the code. He's like, I'll get it. Yeah, I'm going to get it. So it's coming. It's on its way. So go to headygear.com and get yourself an orange slices patch. He was awesome. He had so much of the game there. Like we went from junior to Europe to NHL. I talk to him anytime.
No, Barzy, like I said, was a real deep thinker, really heady hockey player. And of course, then he's thick as thieves with Oatesy, right? Adam Oates carving me up still to this day. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it was always, the old term witty banter. Mm-hmm. And those two are really dry with their humor. Like Barzy, as you can tell, is real dry with his humor. And so is Oatesy. And of course, those two played together. And trying to think who their winger would have been. Because in Detroit, when I was with them, Stevie Y would have been with Spuddy, Gallant, and Proby. Bob Probert would have played up there. And then it would have been Barzy's right-hand shot with Oatesy. And maybe, I can't remember who they slid over on their left side.
Would have been a tough guy, or?
Yeah, it could have been Joey. Joey Kosher could have been Joey with them a little bit too. But just can't think. Maybe Sean Burr once in a while, but Burzy was more of a center iceman. But yeah, it was always, you always had to get ready because with those guys, it was never a dull moment. But as you can see, good guy, and it's great to see. Stayed in the game, had a reset, got back into the game, and got up and going. I think that's something for a lot of other people out there, that if they have a reset in their life, you can always go back and find something you love to do and be really good at it.
Yeah. It's you got to be able to do it. We're running a little bit long today. We're trying to keep it below an hour, and I don't know if we've done that, but lots of trades in the NHL. We won't talk about the trades yet. Well, let's talk about them next week, because that's when's the trade deadline? Is it?
It's Friday.
Yeah. So let's talk about all the trades on next Monday. Let's do that. All right.
Let's do it.
All right. Meanwhile, any shout outs?
How about you? You got any shout outs?
Yes, I'm going to give a shout out to Bert Kreischer, because he's I'm going to open for Bert for in Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Edmonton, Calgary, Kelowna. Starting in Winnipeg, I'm going to go see a Jets game tomorrow night. So a big shout out to Wade Flaherty, hooking me up with some tickets, but also Dana's in town. So I'll be seeing Dana tomorrow night.
They're playing the Kings?
They're playing the Kings. So that'll be
what you lucky SOB. That's awesome. You had to see Flats and Dana.
Yeah, so that'll be good. And I don't know if you heard about that tour, but dreams do come true. I was like, I'm going to call it the Red Rider Tour, because that seems like something they would do.
I you know what? The Red Rider, which you took me back, and my shout out this week, I talked about him at the start of the show. Mike Reno, lover boy, working for the weekend, which is what we all do. And all their other great songs. But Mike Reno and Barzy was there with us when we met Mike Reno in the bar in San Francisco, bringing it all the way back to the start of the show. Yeah. And I'll never forget, and I love Mike Reno, but I'll never forget Joey Kosher had him in a headlock, giving him a newsie at one point. And I'm like, what are you going to do? I think Joey's the toughest guy to ever play hockey. I really do. So if he had me in a headlock, I wasn't doing anything either. There's John Shabbat's just sitting back, the coolest guy in the world. It might have been Shabby, actually, that played with Oatesy and and Barzy a little bit, but he was a centerman. But yeah, so Barzy was there, Joey giving Mike Reno a noogie and a headlock. So a shout out to Mike
The guy
Reno
thinks
for
he's on
being
top
able
of the
to
world.
survive
I'm on top of the world. I'm a rock star. I'm in a headlock.
and I talked about this before, but the band in there, the lead singer looked like kind of like David Suzuki.
Yeah, you brought up
You know, so yeah, we're kind of going back today, but sometimes you have to go back to go forward. So
yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm going to Toronto, Winnipeg via Toronto. Sometimes you gotta go. Oh,
it's
you gotta
amazing.
go. Oh. Well, you try getting to Winnipeg from Los Angeles. It's pretty tough. Anyways, have a good day. Love to all.
Love to all.